tools that are presented here. Briefly, I will be, I've done a couple of introductions and housekeeping matters. Then I will deep dive into blockchain analytics tools as it's a widely used a system for the regulators, supervisors, and law enforcement authorities worldwide for AML, CFT, and sanctions. I will comprehensively speak about the National Bank of Georgia, then what is the challenges, and how can we navigate further the technology. And then I have a bonus both for that and this, so I hope they will have a positive feedback on that as well. And we will round up with the 7 takeaways from the presentation. So I'm not going to go in details here. I just wanted to mention that I work closely with the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation of Europe, as they run the project, which is innovative solution for money laundering and terrorist financing that is basically focused on the virtual assets, money laundering and terrorist financing risk management. When I say virtual assets for the terminology purposes, I mean crypto assets for the Georgian perspective, FATF terminology perspective. We use virtual assets, but then I will be using digital assets as an academic term during the presentation, where I basically mean virtual assets or crypto assets. And I work closely with Global Coalition, and I'll be speaking about it later in the presentation. And the Europol, which runs public-private partnership, where we meet on monthly or every other month to run through the specific cases on money laundering, sanctions, evasion, or discuss any new tools with public-private partnership, which is very, very good platform for those who are in the field. Next one. So just for housekeeping perspective, we just want to reinforce that any opinions are my personal views, and it doesn't necessarily represent the opinions, formal opinions of the organizations such as National Bank of Georgia, OSCE, or any other organization that I may be associated with. Blockchain analytics tools. I have not put list of blockchain analytics tool here because not to see I'm favoring one or the other, but there are multiples that the attendees might have heard about, which is chain analysis, elliptic, TRM labs, crystal intelligence, and so on. The list is numerous. What they enable is that it enables entity-wide risk management. So if I'm a crypto company, I am able to self-risk assess and see where my suspicious transactions are coming from. Equally, it enables supervisors to do entity-level supervision as well as market supervision, ecosystem supervision. I wasn't sure whether cohort had any experience with the blockchain analytics tool, so I asked couple of analytic tool providers to share their screens. It doesn't mean that one tool is better than the other. It's just for the education and illustration purposes. So how do we, as a regulator, use it? It's like three main points. One is understanding the entity. Is like, what are we supervising? And understanding general risk assessment categories, such as, for example, do they request KYC data? What coins do they offer? Do they offer the privacy coins? Are they mixing services? Where are they registered? We also can view what is the risk level of the entity. For example, what is a portion of their crypto inflow or outflow going from the high-risk sources or the sanctions sources or high-risk destinations, sanction destinations, and so on. And equally, we can do the tracing. Tracing is a little bit outside of mandate of the National Bank of Georgia, but for the inspection purposes, we would be doing selective tracing as well. So some of the screens, I use 2 blockchain analytics tools, which is Crystal Intelligence and the Global Ledger. Again, this is not marketing, just for the education purposes. So for example, Crystal Intelligence has this entity inside that module where we can see that like a Coinbase, which is a famous crypto exchange, is offering is active since 2012. It offers certain currencies. It shows a registration, what assets are supported. What is the difference between blockchain analytics tool and open source data? As this is a very good slide, I think it shows how does the open source data looks like. It's a mess of the connected transactions, because any transaction we can Google and then it will show where the flow comes in and where does it go in simple terms. But what does a blockchain analytics tool do in everyone in their own visual way is that they lay out all the transactions and the wallet addresses based on their information. It might be confirmed sources, for example, the sanctioned entities, which is SDN list. So everyone knows it's a sanctioned entity or sanctioned wallet, or they would do labeling based on the intelligence. So for example, they would do the intelligence findings through open sources or some test transactions. So they will find out whether this transaction is related to the high risk activity, gaming, or so on. So it will, for the supervisor, it gives a visually easy. Instead of me trying to understand this black box, they will visually elaborate for me in a high, medium, low risk area, which enables me to have a risk-based decision making. So I can see where I need to spend more time as a supervisor, where I need to go to inspect, or where do I need to take any regulatory measures. So this is a similar, it's just a visually bigger picture. And then the tracing. In terms of the tracing, this shows a layering process. So it's like where the coins are coming from. As we all know, the beauty of the blockchain is that everything is traceable. So this enables us visually understand where the transaction was going, from where to where was going. So it's very similar to what Mr. Brand was showing us, but this is in the blockchain analytics tool directly. This is another company, very similar. Just as an example, all of them are more or less similar. They have their own strong points, but more or less similar. So similar, Binance, another famous company, famous crypto exchange. Then it's a KYC required, privacy coins are supported, registration countries, fiat currency trading, where do they operate, who are their contact points, or what are their payment services. This is another example of the same blockchain analytics tool, but a different exchange, which also labels it as a mixing service. And then similar. So there we've seen like a butterfly shape. Here we see the risk score by the pie shape. It's very visually different representation, but a similar story of where is the risk coming from, right? So as a supervisor, I go in the morning in the system and I can check where is the risk, which my VASP is the most risky. And this global ledger is also labels by 95% risk score and says that it's coming from the risky sources. They also offer the butterfly shape, for example, Garantex, which is a sanctioned entity. They collected all the wallets, and then they see out of nearly 450,000 wallets, how many were coming from the medium risk exchanges. So why do I give all this information? Is to see that what is idiosyncrasies from AML CFT perspective. In the money laundering, we speak very often is like money laundering principles should be technological agnostic, but equally we speak sometimes that it should be same risk, same activity, same risk, same control principle. And then we have the blockchain. We have a crypto assets with its underlying technology. So at the National Bank of Georgia, we have taken a same activity, same risk, same control approach, and plus considered the idiosyncrasies of the digital assets, crypto assets. I like this slide. I made this from OpenAI specifically for this presentation. So SupTech is a journey, not an event. Maybe Georgia is not as advanced as Australia because Georgia is a national regulator. But our aspirations are high, and obviously, I will share our experience, and then we also consider the privacy enhanced technologies. So what we've done is, in terms of our principle, we used to collect from the traditional financial institutions the data to monitor risk per entity as well as per sector. And then what we added here for digital assets, we added the blockchain analytics tool to double check the data as well as to collect some of the data, because some of the data are readily available. So, but what is not in the blockchain analytics tool, it's good tool, but it's not a perfect. So in blockchain analytics tool, we would not see what is the proportion of the clients which are the high risk activities. What is the proportion of clients that are in the cash intensive businesses? Because the majority of the risks in the crypto, whilst it's traceable, it's also coming from on-ramp or off-ramp transactions, which basically means fiat-related transactions. And then in other cases, it's ATM-related transaction where it's a cash transactions. People go with cash, they exchange it for crypto. The combination of these tools enables us to collect the data that we used to collect, enhanced it with the specifics of the blockchain and the crypto specification, as well as supplement it with blockchain analytics tool. And with a hybrid methodology, we also do on-site inspection. We have not done it yet because we are a nascent regulator, just nearly 2 years that we started regulation. But using offsite and the blockchain analytics tool, we will be able to sample as well as plan on-site inspections. Why it's so good is because we are able to collect the data and analyze it on dynamic basis. Then we can do individual VASP-CASP risk assessment, undertake sector risk assessment, which is a FATF requirement under recommendation 15, 15 as well as under recommendation 1. One is on general risk assessment. Recommendation 15 is about specifically on the digital assets risk assessment. Be adaptive and responsive supervision, right? So before we wait 3 months to collect the data, before we go to on-site inspection, using the analytics tool, we are able to detect issue. For example, if suddenly they offer privacy coin, or suddenly their exposure increases to sanctioned entities or any child abuse activities, we are able to undertake action immediately. And it's enhancing compliance culture, because communication with private sector is critical for regulators, and is a dynamic exchange of information, enhancing their compliance culture as well as for regulator to stay informed and in line with the technological advancement. However, as I said, the technology is not ideal, and there are multiple challenges, obviously. First, we don't have visibility on full data. You are reliant on the VASP to provide you with the information. And regulators are also trying to catch up with technological advancements. But one of the key problems, is maybe not the biggest one, but it's a key problem, especially for supervisors and law enforcement authorities, is interoperability of the blockchain analytics tool. What does it actually mean? I'm co-chairing the interoperability workstream and the global coalition to fight financial crime for the digital asset task force. And what is the purpose of this workstream is to solve the problem. So take a scenario. You have two agencies. One might be a VASP-CASP, and the other one might be a law enforcement authorities like Australian FIU, for example. So one VASP is using one blockchain analytics tool, A, and then the agency is using another blockchain analytics tool. So when A wants to send a file, a suspicious activity report to B, do you think it's easy? No. There is no universal file sharing agreed. And also what are the data points that should be shared, not agreed. And the bigger problem, that's technical problem, that's easily solvable. But the bigger problem is another one, clustering. Clustering is that each blockchain analytics tool provider, what does clustering mean? Clustering means giving the labeling, giving the attribution to each wallet transaction, right? So if I'm using one blockchain analytics tool and I see that there is a transaction from cluster A to cluster B, so one group to group 2, group 3. In fact, behind the scenes, there is, so from one wallet to another wallet, there is in between transaction on the two wallets in the second group, and then there is a third group, right? So I think this is, let's say, this is a suspicious transaction, right, by other nature stuff, because it's linked to scam or some high-risk activity or funding some terrorist activity or so on. Let's see, I'm thinking this is high risk. Because cluster 3 is a high-risk wallet, that's why I decide to send this report to FIU. But when I send this report to agency to report my suspicious activity, they might not see the same clustering. Their system, because the way they group wallets, their intelligence they hold, they might think that the wallets Y1 and Y2 are not in the same cluster. That's a big problem. So agencies cannot automatically receive the file and do switch on button and start working on the case. They have to do the manual interventions in order to have the same picture what the agency one had, and then start working on the file. This is a big problem in terms of the law enforcement agencies. Now we are working on testing through either agreeing on the sharing methodology, what they can share, because in principle, everyone agrees. However, there is a problem, there is commerciality, there is a cost involvement and so on. And also blockchain analytics tool, they hold a lot of private data, which is their valuable data, so they can't share everything. So we test, and another test is APIs, through APIs. So let's say we have a common platform, and then it's not that agents, it's not the other blockchain analytics tool hold your information. It's a central agency, law enforcement authority that holds the tool, and the information is just plugged in through API. So we are working on these two solutions. If anyone would like to contribute or have your own views how to solve this more effectively, you are more than welcome to contact me, and I will introduce to the other co-chair and we can discuss solution. Next one. This is a challenge with interoperability. While we need to support competition, innovation, so new tools to be introduced, but then introduction of new tools, because of the different reasons, they can't talk to each other. But navigating technology, as I said at the beginning, the SupTech is a journey. And Georgia is working on its profile and advancing technology. So the two things, which is privacy enhancing technologies that professor has described in the tool, as well as embedded supervision, are something to explore. I'm not going to go now in privacy enhancing because I think we discussed it already. But instead, in terms of embedded supervision, it's basically when it's used in the DeFi, and when a transaction is approved already, the risk data is also reviewed. So it's not only the value of the transaction or the participating parties, but also it's a KYC or CDD information is considered when the transaction is approved. And there is very good paper about this embedded supervision by BAS. And according to the FATF, there are already the countries, FATF report, recent one, there are already countries which are considering testing embedded supervision for the AML CFT purposes. And now the bonus tool, which I think is a very, very valuable tool, because when I joined the National Bank of Georgia, I was reading multiple papers and saving them. And when I needed for either risk assessment or documentation or for some argument, then I had to remember in which paper I read something, open it, find it, close it, and again open, find it, and close it. And it's very tiring, not value-adding work, right? So what does this bonus tool do? I think it's very useful for the compliance financial crime fighters. So most of us have used by now probably ChatGPT. It works like that. So it's preloaded reports by reputable sources, for example, FATF or blockchain analytics tool providers or other international organizations. And when you type in the question, it will give you the response and plus give you the source of this response. So if anyone is interested how it's working, you can click on join waitlist. Let me know that you asked to be a user, and then we will get you approved to have a testing user of the tool. So to summarize presentation, so of key takeaways are SupTech is a journey and not an event. So it's ongoing. Even if we look at the SupTech historically, it was always enhancing. It's testing. It's including the new logic and including how to improve better the risk management. So it's a journey. We discuss a blockchain analytics tool, again, not commercial purposes, just for the example. If any of you would like to have any contacts with any of the blockchain, I'm happy to provide outside of this presentation. Then we spoke about the hybrid supervision methodology, which is same activity, same risk, same control, and added value is on crypto and underlying technology in considering under supervision. Then we spoke about interoperability, which is a big problem, and it's in the process of solving. And two technological advancements, which is embedded supervision and privacy enhancing technologies, really future for supervision. And the last is a financial crime finders tool, which I wished I had 2 years ago. But now it's there, and we can all use for financial fighters league. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to respond now, or you can contact me on my LinkedIn. So thank you very much.